Welcome to Expert Profiles Atlanta, where Atlanta's influencers and innovators share strategies for overcoming obstacles and achieving success in business and life. Here's your host, best-selling author and Atlanta influencer, Neil Howe.
Hello and welcome to the show. This is your host, Neil Howe, and today my special guest is Jeff Corey. He is the owner and creative director of Visual Soldiers, and he helps small and mid-sized businesses break the status quo and build better user experiences. With his 11 plus years of working with different industries, his team of hybrid designers are dedicated to building cutting-edge website experiences and brand identities that tell a story. Their company is situated in the creative district of West Midtown Atlanta at the iconic location, the Goat Farm Art Center. Immersed in creative culture, Visual Soldiers is currently working on new Atlanta development projects such as Underground, established tech companies like Fit Radio, and is the agency of record for other great companies and restaurant groups like Tao Group out of New York. Welcome to the show, Jeff Corey.
Thanks for having me, Neil.
Well, tell us a little bit about yourself. I gave a brief bio there, but tell us a little bit more about you and Visual Soldiers and ultimately who it is that you help, Jeff.
Yes, absolutely. I've been in the creative industry here in Atlanta for a little over 11 years. Started Visual Soldiers just about 3.5 years ago. It's a pretty new entity. After working with other agencies in Atlanta, I decided it was best to go back out on my own and start Visual Soldiers. We have a very different mindset. Our agency is built on the idea of bringing along team members that understand design and development. Working with one of our team members is almost like working with three people. It's a very great company to have. We've been pretty blessed to land a lot of large clients early on in our business. And so it's kind of catapulted us to a new level here in Atlanta. And we want to bring some new ideas to Atlanta specifically. We do a lot of work with Series A level startups, as well as companies who are generally established. We work with, like you mentioned, small to mid-sized businesses on a really big focus of brand development, design, as well as implementation through web experiences. We focus a lot on digital experience side of things, helping to bring products to life, mobile app design to life, as well as web experiences.
And that's extremely important, that web experience. Websites are a first impression when somebody is checking out your business. So you've got to make sure not only they look great, but function appropriately as well. So there's definitely a lot going on there. Now, you said you had some big clients starting out. That is great to get the business going. That's, to be able to show the results that you've produced for them is definitely something that's going to help you close more business. So, what kind of clients are they? Are they restaurants and that kind of client?
We actually work with a number of different agencies. When we first started out about 8 or 9 months into starting Visual Soldiers, we were lucky enough to land the client Tao Group. And if anybody's ever been to Las Vegas or New York, they generally have the top tier restaurants, especially through Vegas, and nightlife spots from California to Las Vegas, as well as New York. We started with a small website for them called Vandal. It's a restaurant in New York. And we were attached to some of the most iconic street artists that worked on the restaurant as well. And we did the digital experience for that. And then spawned from that, we've been currently working with them ever since, and brought in about 8 different websites over the past 1.5 2 years. And it's been pretty spectacular. Everything from Beauty in Essex to Highlight Room in California, Tao downtown in California, and then Tao and Avenue in New York as well.
Excellent. Well, talk to me about some of the issues that these companies and other companies have. What are the main problems that you see that they're coming to you for help for?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of companies, everybody's different. We see the probably the biggest is companies looking to simplify quite a bit. Right now, design systems are very popular with companies that are large and small, making sure that everything from their real world experience and the digital experience is seamless. And to do that, we've got to research, look at every aspect of their business, and come on to define their target audience and making sure that we are creating an experience that's built for their specific end users. We see a lot of clients that choose to work with us specifically for our aesthetic. We've got a very clean, very polished look with all of our designs. We like to make sure that when we come on board, we're designing for specific goals in mind for the target audience. But it's always important to make sure that we get them to a level that their business is perceived as very top tier, very professional. And a lot of clients choose to work with us specifically because of our aesthetic. We've got a very intricate creative process. A lot of younger clients that we work with have never seen an entire creative process from start to finish. But we take our end users through visual direction, through research, learning everything we can about their business. We're a nitty-gritty type agency. We like to get down and learn as much as we can specifically about the company. And then take them into wireframing, mock-ups, brand development, all the way through implementation. A lot of agencies would stop at design, but as an implementation agency, we continue to work through the design through implementation as well.
Yeah, that's very important that you have that communication with the company and, so that you are both on the same page of what the vision is. So how do you get that message? What goes into you taking the time to get all the information needed from the company to create, a great end product?
We do a lot of research. We do a lot of Q&A. We'll sit down with clients and learn about their brand positioning, learn about their place in the market, what their missions, what their goals are, what their vision is. We'll talk to stakeholders. We will talk to employees if they allow us to, just to make sure we know what everybody's perception of the company is. That's very important at a early level of building a brand. We want to know everything about how this company is perceived by its employees, and even Q&Aing potential or their existing clients. It's very, very important at that level. We do a lot of research with competition as well. We will look at how the competition in their space is moving and try to keep the company that we're working and partnering with ahead of the curve by doing all of this research.
Now, do you find, Jeff, that some companies have a problem with seeing their vision and planning out, the next 5-10 years of their company?
I think every company has challenges. Some understand where they're going. Some are moving very quickly, so it's hard to have an exact plan. We've seen both sides of the spectrum. It really helps for us to look at things a little bit differently and really understand where they're going. And if they don't know, we try to get them incrementally to an area in their business where everything's moving appropriately and it's working for what they're trying to do.
And what's different in regards to like a startup company that's just trying to get that message out there to people and get some attention, as opposed to, a company that's been in business for 5, 10, 20 years?
Yeah, that's a great question. Startups usually, they have a great product and they have a great idea, and a lot of them move very quickly, so they don't take a lot of time and effort into building their brand appropriately. Some don't even know who they are yet. They're moving very quickly. and trying to push out a product and get feedback from their first level users and learn as much as they physically can about what their product really is. And those early 6 month to year 2 stages on startup level is a lot of trial and error. After a company's been established for, let's just say 5 or 10 years, they really know who their customer is. It's easier to come on board and brand or rebrand a company like that understands who their clients are. They may be doing things differently, or we might have some opportunity where we can change how they're approaching it. But for the most part, it's a little easier because they understand who they are as a company.
And as far as rebranding, you said, and with technology as it is changing so rapidly, how often now are you advising companies to go back and look at their website and look at the rebranding and make sure it's keeping up with technology? How fast do they have to rebrand and renew?
For the most part, it's a little different. A lot of larger companies that we work with will stick with a specific brand, and they'll start adding components and design systems to work in segments as they're moving along in business. Those established companies won't rebrand, every 10, 15 years. Right now, with the digital world, you've got screen sizes changing constantly. You've got new products and new social media coming out. For the most part, when we do brands, we try to keep everything clean and organized for a good 3 to 5 year time span. Websites much faster. When we do a new website, generally a 2 to 3 year mark. I always like to say it kind of works with like televisions, for instance. You go and look at a new television, and within 6 months to a year, that technology is completely changed. The web works in a very similar way. But we try to think out a little bit outside of the box as well as outside of that time frame to make sure that we're designing something for the future and future-proofing as much of it as we can to make sure that when it comes time to do a rebrand, the design system is understood and it's a lot easier of a challenge to tackle.
Right. So setting that foundation to grow on is really important. I think a lot of businesses out there, put up a website 5, 10, 15 years ago and, have struggled to keep up with some of the changes. Do you see that a lot?
We do. And we always tell our clients, we're looking to become partners. And that's what a good agency does, is they become a partner to a client. And they help them as they grow. We're not a one-off type agency. We don't do, small projects like that where, it allows us to only stop at a specific time. We like to continue that relationship because that's how the best brands and web experiences are built.
Mm-hmm. Now, you say that you have a team of hybrid designers. What does that mean?
Yeah, we are design first thinking. But all of our team members can also code and implement their own designs. It's been pretty challenging finding people that are like us. We're kind of considered the purple unicorn of the industry. People that actually understand how to implement code as well as they understand design rules. Most of us went to design schools and then found, me specifically, I found that niche of coding when I realized that there was not a lot of companies getting solid code work. Most front-end designs were done by back-end developers that didn't know design rules. So I taught myself from the ground up. I spent a good 5 or 6 years going through learning as much as I could about the web because I saw a niche. And I guess that was really my entrepreneur spirit, learning as much as I could to try to dig into a niche. But after doing that, I realized that the web is a craft, and front end specifically, making things look good, understanding negative space, understanding how color works, is what back end developers do not focus on. And that's where we generally bridge the gap. We even have a lot of back end development teams that want us to work directly with them to code the front end of the sites and literally hand them everything to implement to a back end application because they're not capable of doing it.
Now, to the layperson or the business owner out there, what does coding a site mean?
It's a pretty big process. Most are on average, our sites usually span about 4 months in design and development time. We start from the ground up with visual direction. We go through wireframing stage, user experience stages, learning every single goal about every single page throughout the experience. And then also into full mockups. We generally design and right up until about 90%, meaning the client would get to see 90% of the site before it's ever developed. We do from that stage, from that mockup stage, we go right into 2 stages of development. We've got our structure stage, which is all HTML, CSS, JavaScript. That's really the structure of everything. And then into backend. We utilize the WordPress CMS platform quite a bit. We build it from the ground up. We literally build a template, custom template for each of our clients.
Very good. And how about for SEO purposes? Is it important to include that kind of coding to make sure that the websites are found rather than just looking good?
Absolutely. We write very, very clean code, which is what Google and all the search engines love. We are very focused on implementation, and we do SEO at a high level. We don't necessarily go through searching keywords and going through all of those steps. That needs to be done by more of a marketing type agency that focuses on it. But we add in all the meta tag information, specific plugins to help out with that. We look at the titles and descriptions, making sure that they're correct, as well as Facebook, Twitter, and all of the Open Graph specific codes that need to be in there for searchability for those social platforms as well.
Okay, so talk to me about some of the misconceptions people have about web design and development.
There's a lot of them. That's always a great question. I think the biggest one is we get a lot of clients that want something to be very simple and clean. Number one misconception is simple and clean on the web always takes a whole lot longer. And that's from an aesthetic standpoint, you can't just if you put some basic code up, it looks terrible. So that's definitely been a big one for us. We hear a lot of clients that want it fast, and doing amazing things from a web experience side takes more time. You can't just put something up very quickly. In most cases, it's a good process, and even when you get the site done and the experience is good, there's always tweaks that need to be made afterwards. So it's never a set it and forget about it.
Right, it's always a thing in motion. Always something to be done, something to be changed. So you really need somebody to manage that. And do you do that part of it as well, manage the site for them?
We do. We try to empower the client as much as possible by giving them a tool to be able to do their business and become successful. We give them full control over the site. A lot of big changes, structural things will come on board to help out from a maintenance level. But a lot of people early on with this process don't really understand what a great design can actually do for their business. And that's always been a kind of a misconception. They think if they've got a good design, it's not going to help them that much. It's not really apparent to stakeholders until months later when they see how the site's being perceived, that it is built for a specific target and end users in mind, and people are interacting with it in a very, very different way.
Right. They've got to have that experience once they get to the site, and that interaction is, going to keep them on the site longer, and ultimately that leads to sales.
Absolutely.
So, explaining all of these things, what are, some things that might hold a business back from taking action and saying yes to a new brand or site redevelopment?
It depends. I think sometimes, in some cases, it's time. We've got clients that, again, want something very quickly, or especially at startup level, they need it within 2 months. And our agency is incapable of doing that, especially with how we build everything from the ground up. And then, at some level, it could be pricing. Since we do work from the ground up. We are definitely not the least expensive, and we're also not the most expensive. So it depends on, really where the client is in their business. I think first impressions are everything. And I know what happens, just by seeing some of the results that we've gotten from a lot of our past clients, that when you have a great website, a great digital experience, the brand is tight, it's understandable throughout every facet of how you do business. I believe that it is one of the most powerful things that you can add as a tool for your business.
Yeah, that's right. Immediately it says something about your business. If you go to a website that is not functional or looks bad, that's going to be your first impression of the business. And ultimately, it is true for the most part.
Absolutely. The digital presence now is your first impression. And that is not just web experience. That is also everything you're doing from social, from your messaging. Every aspect of your business now is touching the web in some way.
So, Jeff, give us some examples of some different businesses that you have worked with. What kind of problems did they have before they came to you? How were you able to solve them for them? And ultimately, what was the outcome? What difference did it make to the business?
Absolutely. We just started working about 7-8 months ago with Underground Atlanta for the new rebrand of the new development. I think one of our biggest challenges coming on board early with that project was the perception of Atlanta now. And how everything has changed. Underground has such an iconic area, and people have known about it for years, and predominantly was retail. And now everything has changed, and we came on board specifically to do some great research, rebuild the brand to work with a new modern era, and really make sure that it's something that's new. And that was what's still keeping history, because it has such a prolonged history of its importance to the city. So we wanted to make sure throughout everything that we did, we added vibrancy. It had a grittiness, because that's how Atlanta is for the most part. With street art and new things coming on here with the city. There's a lot of an industrial presence down there with a lot of the buildings, and then provide that really neat boldness of this being in the center of the city. Everything started there. Atlanta was created from there, and that was one of the biggest things that we wanted to hint on is we're bringing everything back into the center of the city.
Very good. Great example there. Now, tell me, Jeff, a lesson that you learned early on in business, dealing with people, dealing with companies, expectations. What did you learn early on that still impacts how you do business today?
I'd say the biggest one, that's always a tough one. There's a lot. I learn something new every day from an entrepreneurial standpoint. But never assume. I would say that's a very big one. We look at businesses from the outside in, and it's very easy to assume that they're organized or they have it all together. And once you start talking to them and really finding out what their pain points are, there's always challenges. And in our line of work, it is at becoming a partner with a potential client. You've got to learn about those pain points. You've got to learn about those challenges, and then be able to come on as a trusted partner to, again, break the status quo, do something different, and get them outside of the box, separate them from the competition.
So there's a great deal of communication that's going to go on back and forth between you, the design company, and the business or company that you're working for. If somebody is looking for a web design company right now, what kind of questions should they be asking to make sure that they find the right one?
I'd say first question is what's their end goal? Like what is their big goal with this site? Is it to be brochure? Is it to just purely give information? I would be looking for people who can do it from the ground up. A lot of specific web designers now are using templates and specific things that are out there, web builders and those types of things. And while that's great and all, I think to truly get an experience that is custom to your business and to what you do, it has to be done from the ground up. I would also be looking for companies that understand design. Design systems are very, very important. Looking at every aspect of how that company is laid out, from their style guide standpoint, all the way to how they're positioning their content, all comes into consideration when you're building a new site and a new experience on the web.
And I imagine the more complex the site, the more important it is to have, the correct coding rather than something starting from a template.
Absolutely. When you start from a blank slate, it's very easy for you to understand every aspect of what you need and lay it out in a way that is goal oriented. And then pick and choose the right backend tools, the right types of content areas that you need, and really structure it in a way that's going to work.
All right, Jeff. Well, that's a lot of great content that you've given. The importance of the communication, I think, is what really stood out to me. There's definitely a lot that goes into it, a lot of time that goes into producing something. It's not something that you turn around in Absolutely. A couple of weeks. So if somebody is looking to get this kind of project done, what is the best way for them to get in touch with you, Jeff?
They can check us out on the web at visualsoldiers.com. And I would invite them to look us up on Instagram. We're also Instagram /visualsoldiers, and on Dribbble as well. Dribbble is a platform for creatives to show off their work and see how other creatives like their work, which is always very important. And we're at dribble.com /visualsoldiers. And then our telephone number, 404-800-6022. That's how you reach us. Excellent.
Well, Jeff Corey is the owner of Visual Soldiers in West Midtown, Atlanta. Thanks very much for being my guest on Expert Profiles today.
Thank you for having me, Neil.
And to our listening audience, if you like what you hear, hit that like button and share, and we'll see you next time on the show.
Thank you for listening to Expert Profiles Atlanta with Neil Howe. To learn more about the resources in the show or to listen to past episodes, visit expertprofilesatlanta.com.